February 18th, 1944, 50 feet above occupied France. Pilot David Blackie Black barely clears a line of trees as his twin-engine Mosquito screams over frozen farmland. Engines pushed far past redline. The wooden fuselage vibrates so violently it threatens to rip itself apart. Behind him, 4 crewmen brace against the icy airflow blasting through bullet holes in the cockpit glass, courtesy of the Luftwaffe squadron now hunting them down. German radar had spotted them minutes after crossing the channel. FW-190s, the Luftwaffe's fastest killers, are closing in from the east. Blackie's navigator checks the map again. This isn't a bombing run. This is a raid no one was supposed to attempt. A low-level precision strike deep inside Nazi territory. Their target, a Gestapo prison holding French resistance leaders, marked for execution at dawn. As they close in, anti-aircraft fire erupts. Blackie holds his altitude, just 50 feet, too low for German gunners to depress their barrels fast enough. There is no second chance, no bomber escort, no margin for error. One missed calculation and the Mosquito will disintegrate on impact. But this mission isn't suicide, it's revenge. The British High Command had abandoned these prisoners. Blackie refused. Tonight, a handful of men inside a mostly wooden aircraft will attempt something no one believed possible. Break into a Nazi prison, blow a hole through its walls without killing the hostages inside, and escape before the Luftwaffe tears them out of the sky. What Blackie didn't know, what no one knew, was that this raid would humiliate Hitler, shatter German air defenses, and change the future of aerial warfare forever. This is the untold story of the Mosquito, the plane Germany laughed at until it started killing their best. If you're new here and you want more real, immersive World War II stories that put you right inside the cockpit, the trenches, and behind enemy lines, hit subscribe right now. Most people will scroll past history and forget it ever happened, but not you. You're here because you want to feel it. So click subscribe and like this video before we continue. This story is just getting started.
Blackie drops lower, 40 feet, 30, just a few meters above the snow. The Mosquito's belly nearly scrapes a frozen hedgerow as tracer fire rips past the wings. Behind them, 2 FW-190s dive, lining up their shots. "Stay on course," his navigator shouts over the deafening engines. They can't climb, they can't fight. Speed is their only defense. At this altitude, even a single mistake means death. An unexpected hill, a radio tower, a flock of birds, and there'll be nothing but splinters across French soil. But David Blackie Black didn't become a legend by backing off. He pushes the throttles forward again, max power. The Merlin engines scream so violently they sound like they might burst. The Mosquito shudders, but holds. Because it isn't just any aircraft. It's the de Havilland Mosquito, built not from armor and steel, but from wood. When it was introduced, German engineers laughed. Luftwaffe command called it a toy. Hermann Göring mocked it in a speech, bragging, "The British could only build wooden planes. We shot them down by the dozens." He was wrong. The Mosquito didn't need armor. It didn't need guns. It didn't need escort fighters. It survived because nothing could catch it. It flew faster than Spitfires. It outran Me-109s. It even outpaced Germany's first jet fighter, the Me-262, because while the Germans obsessed over steel, The British built a ghost too fast to hit, a ghost too light to stop, a ghost that kept haunting Nazi Germany again and again. And now, deep over occupied France, it is about to make its most impossible raid. Luftwaffe radio intercepts are already screaming Blackie's position to every German airbase within 200 miles. If he doesn't blow that prison wall in the next 3 minutes, the prisoners will be executed, and his crew will die in a firestorm of German fighters. And yet, this mission almost didn't happen at all. When Blackie first proposed rescuing the prisoners, British High Command rejected the plan. Too risky, too precise, too insane. But Blackie had 3 things the desk men in London didn't. A target worth dying for, a revenge story carved into his soul, and the only plane fast enough to pull off the impossible. Tonight, the world would discover why the Mosquito, once mocked as a wooden joke, was feared by every German pilot who ever faced it. Because this isn't just a rescue mission. This is a warning.
September 19, 1942, 27,000 feet above Berlin. The sky should have belonged to Germany. The Reich told its people the Luftwaffe ruled here, absolute, unchallenged. But on this morning, something slipped through their airspace that shattered that illusion forever. Oberlieutenant Wilhelm Jorns tightened his grip on the control stick of his Messerschmitt Bf 109G. The supercharger screamed, the DB605 engine bled in the red, yet the aircraft ahead of him, tiny, sleek, impossibly fast, was pulling away. This was no normal enemy. It had no gun turrets, no armored belly, no heavy tail guns, just a smooth, slender frame that looked wrong for war, like something that didn't belong here. It looked weak. It looked like wood. Jorns blinked hard, adjusting his gun sight. Twin engines, long glass nose, no escort, no drag, no fear. "He's accelerating," Jorns transmitted. "Static," answered him. He pushed throttle past combat limit, engine temp climbing, fuel vanishing, airframe shuddering at max speed. The British plane kept pulling away. If you're new here and you want more real, immersive World War II stories that put you right inside the cockpit, the trenches, and behind enemy lines, hit subscribe right now. Most people will scroll past history and forget it ever happened, but not you. You're here because you want to feel it. So click subscribe and like this video before we continue. This story is just getting started. For 8 minutes, he hunted it. For 8 minutes, he lost. The humiliation was total. He had just met the de Havilland Mosquito, the aircraft Germany had mocked as a British joke, a plywood toy, a wooden coffin for naive pilots. But this wasn't a joke. It was a warning. And inside Berlin, powerful men were about to panic. Months before that encounter, Nazi intelligence had already received a report about this aircraft, and they laughed. That would be their first mistake. In early 1941, German operatives in neutral Sweden intercepted blueprints for a new British long-range aircraft. The analysis made no sense. A bomber made almost entirely from wood. No guns, no armor, no defensive crew. The Luftwaffe's engineering board dismissed it instantly. Impossible, British desperation propaganda. No bomber survives without guns. But the British engineers behind the Mosquito didn't care about survival. They weren't building another bomber. They were building something else. Something engineered to exploit a weakness in German aircraft design so brutal, so obvious, that no one saw it coming.
The Mosquito was not built to fight. It was built to outrun war itself.
While RAF bombers were being torn apart over Germany, a small group of designers secretly rejected the entire doctrine of air combat. Why dogfight? Why fly in huge vulnerable formations? Why trade lives in the sky when you could simply fly faster than death? The Mosquito was born from a ruthless idea. If they can't catch you, they can't kill you. Wood made it lighter. No guns made it faster. No armor meant no drag. 2 Merlin engines transformed it into something new, a ghost that could invade sky and vanish before fighters could react. It didn't just break German engineering, it humiliated it. Berlin would feel that humiliation first. January 30th, 1943. While Hermann Goering prepared a national broadcast celebrating Hitler's 10th year in power, a flight of Mosquitoes approached Berlin at high altitude. Radar reported a small threat. Interceptors launched. Too late. The Mosquito bomber reached Berlin first. It dropped its payload, not on a military base, but directly on Goering's broadcast station. His speech to the nation cut off mid-sentence as shrapnel ripped through the studio. Goering was humiliated in front of the entire country. At 3 p.m., he tried again at a second location. A second Mosquito bombed that building too. Germany never forgave that insult, and Hermann Goering never recovered from it. That was the day Germany stopped laughing at the wooden plane. That was the day fear began.
The Luftwaffe called an emergency conference. Reports came in from every air division across occupied Europe. Same story, same failure. Interception attempt unsuccessful. Target escaped. Contact lost. Aircraft climbed beyond pursuit ceiling. Enemy moved as if immune to interception. German fighter doctrine collapsed in real time. Pilots trained to attack formation bombers now found themselves chasing ghosts, fast, silent intruders that struck and disappeared. The Mosquito didn't just win battles, it broke tactics. Goering raged in a way his staff had never seen. His personal quote circulated through every briefing room on the continent. "I refused to believe the British could produce a fighter faster than ours made of wood." Denial turned to obsession. He ordered Mosquito squadrons to be destroyed at all costs. He demanded new tactics. He demanded the impossible. "Bring me the wooden plane." But no one could, because no one could catch it. How do you kill something you can't catch? You sabotage it before it launches. The Mosquito became priority target number 1 for German intelligence. Sabotage missions began. Supply chains were attacked. Cross-border timber shipments went missing. De Havilland factories were targeted in bombing runs. Nazi agents attempted to burn wood processing sites in Canada. Nothing worked. The Mosquito production decentralized, built in piano factories, furniture shops, railway depots, anywhere wood was worked. It became the world's first distributed war machine. Germany couldn't bomb it out of existence because it was everywhere. And the most humiliating part? It was being built by civilians, craftsmen, carpenters, cabinet makers, while Germany spent fortunes on over-engineered monsters like the Me-210 and He-177, both catastrophic failures. The Mosquito didn't care. It kept coming.
Germany escalated. The Mosquito escalated harder. New mission types arrived. Low-altitude ocean strikes against U-boats, surgical bombing runs on Gestapo headquarters, Pathfinder missions guiding heavy bombers, night fighter missions hunting German aircraft,
and psychological raids that hit cities with zero warning. It was versatile, elegant, deadly. Everything German aircraft were not. Then came Operation Jericho, the mission that turned the Mosquito from a fast bomber into a legend. France, February 18, 1944, 11 a.m. The walls of Amiens prison stood thick and cold, packed with resistance fighters the Gestapo planned to execute at dawn. Their fate was sealed, until a whisper passed through RAF intelligence: "We're getting them out." The rescue wouldn't come from the ground, it would come from the sky. A squadron of Mosquitoes flew in low under radar, skimming the countryside just feet off the ground. They moved so fast, German spotters couldn't track them. Civilians looked up and saw only blurs. Inside the prison, walls shook. Inmates hit the floor. Germans panicked. The Mosquitoes didn't target guards. They didn't target barracks. They targeted walls. They carved a hole in the prison itself, precision bombing at less than 100 feet altitude. Impossible. Insane. Perfect. Hundreds escaped before German reinforcements arrived. It was one of the most daring rescue missions in aerial history. The Mosquito wasn't just a plane anymore. It was a message. We will go anywhere. We will strike anything. And you will never stop us. By 1944, the Mosquito had become more than a problem. It was a humiliation. Every time German command promised control of the skies, Mosquitoes appeared to disprove it. Every time Goering claimed German engineering supremacy, Mosquitoes tore that lie apart. The damage wasn't just military, it was psychological, it was personal. Inside the Luftwaffe collapse, German squadrons began refusing Mosquito interception missions. They didn't say it out loud, but every pilot knew Mosquito hunting was suicide for engines. You could push your Bf 109 or FW 190 to full power trying to catch one, but within minutes, the temperature hit red. Engines seized, fuel ran dry, turbos failed, rudders ripped apart. The official term for this in Luftwaffe reports was operational fatigue. Pilots had a different phrase, the Mosquito curse. Some swore the aircraft wasn't just fast, it was alive. It moved before you did. It climbed when you chased. It dove when you fired. It vanished into cloud and reappeared behind you. German pilots weren't afraid of dying. They were afraid of being made fools of. Nothing in war is worse than being hunted by something you can't catch. Nazi pride tried to fight back and failed. Germany tried everything. Me 410 Mosquito Hunter project, outrun it with speed, failed. Heinkel HE 219 Night Interceptor, fight it at night, failed. D335 File, twin-engine push-pull speed demon, too late. V1 and V2 revenge weapons, irrelevant. Mosquitoes destroyed launch sites. Nothing worked. The Mosquito killed programs by existing. Entire divisions were forced to reorganize. German strategy had to shift from offense to defense. Speed had rewritten the laws of air combat, and Germany had no answer.
Goering's confession. In a private briefing recorded by Allied intelligence after the war, Hermann Goering admitted a truth that shattered German air doctrine. "It makes me furious when I see the Mosquito. I turn green and yellow with envy. The British, who can afford aluminum better than we can, spare it. They build their planes of wood." He finally understood. The Mosquito didn't just use speed, it used humiliation as a weapon. The most dangerous version of all. The Mosquito FB-6 fighter bomber changed the war. It didn't just outrun German fighters, it hunted them. Night after night, Mosquito crews stalked German aircraft in the dark, intercepting bombers, ambushing fighters, tearing apart supply lanes. German bomber crews had a name for the Mosquito: Der Splintered Toad, the splinter of death. It struck fast, it killed clean, it evaporated into the sky. But the Mosquito wasn't finished. Hitler still controlled Europe by terror. He had allies, he had propaganda, he had secrets buried in the shadows. And the Mosquito? It was built to go into shadows.
They didn't fear enemy fighters. They didn't fear anti-aircraft guns. What every pilot feared was their own wings ripping off mid-flight. In 1943, the Air Force faced a problem so deadly it was classified. The wings were failing. Entire bombers tore apart in the sky, killing dozens at a time, not from enemy fire, but from their own aircraft coming apart under stress. Reports came in from every squadron. Pilots swore they heard wings creak and scream at high altitude. Tail gunners watched metal bend and ripple during sharp turns. Command ignored them. Engineers on the ground blamed pilots for improper aerial maneuvering, and headquarters blamed the chaos of war. Nobody listened until it was almost too late. One mission over the North Atlantic turned the suspicion into horror. 30 B-17s cut through a frozen sky, fighting brutal headwinds. In bomber number 27, the pilot heard a metallic shriek, like steel screaming inside the wing. Then came the cracking. The left wing fractured, ripping in half. The aircraft broke apart, and the crew was thrown into the sky. They never even saw an enemy. Their plane simply destroyed itself in midair. The official report blamed turbulence. Privately, the investigation revealed a chilling truth. The B-17's wing design had a hidden structural weakness. It was never built to survive the stress of real combat flying. But instead of grounding the fleet for repairs, High Command took another path. They buried the truth. Thousands of lives were now at risk. Every mission became a game of survival against physics. But everything changed because of one man, not a general, not a commander, not a decorated ace, a field engineer, a quiet, stubborn mechanic named Elias Carter. Carter wasn't special on paper. He had no rank worth mentioning, no inventions to his name. But what he did have was a mind that refused to accept death as part of acceptable loss. After watching 3 bombers fall apart during routine takeoff in a single week, he began collecting torn metal from crash sites. He studied the fractures, traced stress lines with chalk, and compared the damage from 10 different aircraft. The pattern he found terrified him. The wings weren't failing because of damage. They were failing because of design flaws.
He submitted a report to command. They threw it out. He warned the chief air engineer. They shut him down. They had a war to fight. They didn't have time for theories. But Carter knew he was right, so he broke the rules and did something that could have sent him to prison. He began fixing bombers in secret. With no official funding, no support, and no approval, he raided the junk piles behind the hangars. He scavenged landing gear cables, spare bolts, cracked aluminum braces, everything he could find. What he built looked insane. Field crews laughed at him. He didn't care. His idea was simple but genius: disperse wing stress before it becomes deadly. Using improvised steel braces and redistributed tension cables, he created a crude but effective reinforcement system. It redirected flight strain through multiple points, preventing catastrophic failure. The problem? If his design failed at altitude, it would rip the entire wing clean off and kill the crew instantly. He needed a test pilot, someone desperate or crazy. He found one. At dawn, a modified B-17 was rolled onto the runway. No markings, no paperwork. Carter had installed his secret reinforcement overnight. Ground crew watched in disbelief. If this experiment failed, the plane would disintegrate in front of them. The engines roared to life. The bomber lifted into the frozen morning sky. 2,000 feet, 5,000, 10,000. The test pilot threw the aircraft into a hard banking turn, the exact maneuver that had destroyed so many bombers. The wings groaned under pressure, and the metal flexed. Then something incredible happened. The strain stabilized. Carter's design held. For a moment, everyone on the ground believed they were witnessing a miracle of instinctive engineering. And then, just as hope appeared, fire erupted from the left engine. The bomber spiraled out of control, and Carter could only watch, helpless, as his illegal invention and everyone on board vanished into the clouds. What happened next would ignite a war inside the Air Force itself, a war not fought with bullets and bombs, but with pride, politics, and power. Because what Carter built didn't just save one plane, it had the power to save an entire air fleet, and that made him very dangerous.
October 14th, 1943. 25,000 feet above Germany, Staff Sergeant Michael Romano crouches in the cramped tail section of his B-17, hands gripping twin 50-caliber machine guns that weigh more than he does. Through the small plexiglass window, he watches a Focke-Wulf 190 positioning for an attack run. 6 o'clock low, the bomber's most vulnerable angle. Romano squints through his ring and bead sight, the primitive aiming system, essentially two metal posts he must align with his target, offers no compensation for speed, no calculation for deflection, no help whatsoever, as both aircraft hurtle through the sky at combined closing speeds exceeding 500 miles per hour. He fires. Tracers arc harmlessly behind the diving fighter. The FW-190's cannons flash. 20-millimeter shells tear through aluminum like tissue paper. This scene repeats itself 291 times today across the 2nd Schweinfurt raid. The 8th Air Force dispatches 291 B-17 Flying Fortresses deep into Germany without fighter escort. By nightfall, 60 bombers, more than 20% of the attacking force, will be shot down. Another 138 return so badly damaged they'll never fly again. 600 American airmen are dead. The mathematics are brutal and unsustainable. At this rate, no bomber crew will statistically survive their required 25 missions. Post-mission analysis reveals the grim truth. Tail gunners, supposedly the bomber's last line of defense against the preferred German attack angle, achieve hit rates below 8%. Fighter pilots need merely attack from the rear, endure a few seconds of inaccurate return fire, and methodically destroy America's billion-dollar strategic bombing campaign, one fortress at a time. Senior commanders gather at 8th Air Force headquarters in High Wycombe, England. The defensive armament supposed to make the B-17 a flying fortress has failed catastrophically. Without a solution, daylight precision bombing, the entire strategic doctrine faces cancellation. What these commanders don't know is that at that very moment, on a cold, hard stand at Bassingbourn Airfield, a 22-year-old tail gunner with barely a high school education is sketching a design in his logbook that violates multiple Army Air Forces regulations, a design that will be called mechanically impossible by weapons engineers, a design that will triple tail gun accuracy and save thousands of American lives. This is the story of the innovation they tried to ban, and the gunner who refused to stop.
To understand why Romano's innovation proved so revolutionary, you must first understand the impossible problem tail gunners faced in 1943. The B-17 Flying Fortress entered combat with a defensive philosophy borrowed from naval warfare, bristling with enough machine guns to create overlapping fields of fire. The bombers were theoretically protected through sheer volume of lead. Army Air Force's promotional materials called it a flying battleship. Reality proved brutally different. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano reported to Bassingbourn Airfield, England, in August 1943 as a replacement tail gunner for the 91st Bomb Group. He was a former factory worker from Pittsburgh, no college degree, no engineering background, barely 19 years old when he enlisted. The Army trained him for 6 weeks how to clear jams, estimate range, and pray his shots connected. His assigned position, the tail gunner station, was barely larger than a coffin. He had to kneel on a bicycle seat, feet braced against the aircraft structure, hands wrestling 84-pound Browning M2 machine guns through a cramped field of fire. The guns pivoted on a simple yoke mount. His aiming system consisted of a ring and bead sight, a metal circle with a post at the front, like sights on a frontier rifle. To hit a diving fighter, Romano had to estimate the target's speed relative to his own aircraft, calculate deflection angle, where to aim ahead of the target, compensate for bullet drop over distance, execute all calculations while wearing bulky gloves in -40 degrees temperatures, fire before the German pilot's cannons with 4 times his range, and hope his shots landed before his tail position was turned into shrapnel. Expert gunners from peacetime aerial gunnery schools attempted the same shots under controlled conditions. Their hit rates barely exceeded 12%. In combat, stressed, oxygen-deprived, and under fire, actual hit rates plummeted to 6 to 8%. The Luftwaffe recognized this vulnerability immediately. German fighter tactics evolved throughout 1943. Attack from 6 o'clock level or low, accept 15 to 20 seconds of inaccurate tail gunfire, close to 200 yards, and unleash devastating 20-millimeter cannon strikes. Luftwaffe after-action reports described B-17 tail positions as marginally dangerous, accuracy insufficient to deter attacks. August 17, 1943, First Schweinfurt raid. 60 bombers lost. October 8, 1943, Bremen raid, 30 bombers lost. October 10, 1943, Münster raid, 30 bombers lost. The 8th Air Force hemorrhaged bombers faster than factories could replace them. General Henry Hap Arnold, commanding general of the Army Air Forces, received casualty reports in Washington and questioned whether daylight bombing remained viable. Engineers proposed solutions: more guns, bigger caliber, powered turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center began designing an improved tail turret, but development timelines stretched into 1944. Powered turret prototypes existed, but installation required removing the entire tail section, a months-long factory modification impossible on bombers already in England. Meanwhile, men died. Romano flew his first combat mission on August 19, 1943, targeting Gilse Ryan Airfield in the Netherlands. He fired 480 rounds at 3 attacking FW-190s. He believed he scored hits. Gun camera footage later revealed every tracer passed harmlessly behind the targets. The fighters destroyed 2 bombers in his formation. After his 3rd mission, Romano stayed on the hardstand after landing, staring at his guns. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the physical exhaustion of manhandling 84-pound weapons through sustained fire while kneeling at altitude. That night he sketched his first design concept. The problem wasn't the gun, it wasn't even the mount. It was that tail gunners fired blind, chasing targets they couldn't properly track, aiming at points in space they couldn't accurately predict. What Romano needed was something the Army Air Forces hadn't provided, a way to see where his bullets would actually go before pulling the trigger. He needed a reflector sight. But the tail position's cramped quarters made standard reflector installation impossible, unless someone broke the rules.